Hello friends and welcome back to my channel, Blue Nose Trading. My name is Tori Solis and today I'm going to be testing Mayco Glaze Lemon Meringue across a variety of different clay bodies and a textured white stoneware mug. This glaze is theoretically a yellow matte that pools white with thicker application. I'll be firing this glaze to cone 6 with a 5-minute hold in an electric oxidation kiln. This glaze is listed as dinnerware safe by the company on the container. It's frequently repeated, but important enough to continue repeating. Make sure you are mixing your glazes well. I use a stick to see if there's compacted mineral at the bottom of the glaze container, and if so, how much is down there. Anything stuck at the bottom needs to be loosened up so that it can be mixed into the solution. Your glaze is a solution. If you leave a ton of unmixed mineral at the bottom of a glaze jar, you're essentially working with an incomplete solution which will create an unpredictable glaze because it's missing ingredients. It would be like baking cookies, but someone stole a bunch of your flour and a random amount of your baking soda and maybe an egg. Thorough mixing is essential for consistent, predictable results. A drill with an egg beater attachment is a great way to make sure the solution is mixed thoroughly. But it's really important that you go down there with something and make sure that there isn't just a bunch compacted at the bottom, because sometimes the mixer you won't be able to feel it as well. That's just my experience. I suggest you go down there and poke around, especially if it's a brand new container of glaze. The instructions on the jar recommend 2 to 3 coats for this glaze. I test at 1, 2, and 3 coats on my series of test tiles. For the white stoneware textured mug, I'm going to apply 2 coats and just see where that gets us. I like to include a textured white stoneware mug as part of my testing to get a clearer picture of how a glaze runs and pools on a vertical surface. Sometimes test tiles don't always paint a clear picture of how glaze is going to behave on a larger piece. I also find it helpful to test glazes across a variety of different clay bodies to show how a glaze may potentially behave. We all use different clays, and there are for sure more clay bodies out there than I could ever reasonably test on every glaze. But in general, I like to have a white stoneware, a speckled buff, a red, a black, and a porcelain body. Everything else is just razzle-dazzle when I have it available to me. I would strongly encourage you to do your own tests with your own clay body in your own kiln before you commit to anything too important. That's just good practice. But if you want to live dangerously, you do you. Glaze dangerously and boldly accept any consequences. I'm here for it. I too make impatient choices from time to time, and sometimes it works out fine, and sometimes I ruin a kiln shelf, the risk we choose to run or we choose not to run. Looking at 2 coats on this white stoneware textured mug, I'm seeing a lot of blistering from this glaze. This could be from the clay body off-gassing or from this glaze over-firing. I haven't ever had issues with my mattes blistering on white stoneware before unless they were over-fired. However, this glaze says that it's a cone 5 to 10 glaze. We're only glazing to cone 6, so we should be well within that range. I also bisque my work to the recommended cone 04. That is just my typical bisque all around. So this is a strange reaction here from this clay and glaze. I don't have a full explanation. I'm also not seeing much of the white coming through on this piece, except slightly around the handle area. Though speaking as future me from the future, it seems this glaze tends to work best for me in a single coat. But this all depends on what you're looking for and trying to achieve with your work. On the white stoneware test tile, this glaze seems to behave as intended. We have a smooth, matte, buttery yellow that runs to white with thick application, shown in the upper 3-coat layer. This is a great time to mention that not all white stoneware clay is going to take glaze the same way. So again, it's always important to test your own situation first if you want full control going into your glazing. I'm fairly certain that the white stoneware for this test mug is probably different than the brand that I used for making the tiles. I think I switched at some point and just had these test mugs laying around. So we're working through them and eventually the tiles will match the mugs again. On Laguna B Mix, this glaze is also behaving as expected. There is some slight pitting in the grooves, which is something to consider when using this glaze for dinnerware. You could totally make it work, and this glaze is listed as dinnerware safe, but you might have to be extra careful with application to avoid pitting in unfortunate areas. When applied to Laguna Frost Cone 6 porcelain, this glaze seems to get its white variegation in slightly thinner application. There's a lot more white here than yellow as compared to the other tiles that receive the same application. Otherwise, it's a beautiful bright yellow and seems to have the same pitting and pooling that situation that's going on with pretty much every other body. The speckles on Industrial Mineral Company Dragonfruit are still mostly visible through this matte glaze. Sometimes the speckles on this body can get lost under a thick matte glaze. The results here are what I would consider favorable. Laguna Speckle Buff is probably my favorite glaze and body reaction here. The speckles come through nicely, they're super differentiated, and the surface is a textured yellow matte. The thick application and pooling give white variegation. Trinity Spectacular Clay holds this glaze well. I really like how the spots bleed so much into the glaze. The finish is a smooth matte and a perfect warm sunflower yellow. On my Cone 6 Red Terracotta, there's a significantly greater amount of pitting on the surface. This makes sense as a darker clay body has more junk in it and thus off-gases a bit more. Matte glazes like this don't tend to heal over well when the gas bubbles pop and make a hole in the surface of the glaze. Though the color and surface are not ruinous depending on what you're trying to make. This could be nice for some outdoor planters or cactus succulent kind of things. Moving into Laguna B3, there is a significantly greater amount of blistering. This is like pitting but extreme holes because the holes are so big that they make blisters. They're a lot bigger. Though I am impressed that the yellow held its own as a color on this black clay body. Most glazes just crisp black and die. Laguna Esbache has a similar story, but for outdoor sculpture work, this could be a really cool texture and color to work with. This clay doesn't like any kind of glaze ever, so this is honestly a pretty high score here. All around, I really like this glaze. It's a lovely solid yellow when applied to the right stoneware or porcelain. There was a pattern I noticed on the test tiles for pitting in areas where the glaze would pool, so that is something to consider when you are making functional work. I will post a link below where you can find more about this lemon meringue glaze from Mayco Colors on their website, maycocolors.com. If you'd like to help support my channel so I can bring more glaze test videos to you, please consider becoming a supporter of my work at patreon.com/bluenosetrading. Patrons get early access to all of my videos. If you'd like to just stick around for a weekly art video, be sure to subscribe to this channel, Blue Nose Trading. I post a new art video every Friday and daily art shorts. Thank you so much for tuning in this week. Remember that you have great ideas that are worth exploring, drink lots of water, and I will see y'all next week.